Hey everyone, I'm here with my friend Omar Serrato, the Tilted Lawyer. He's waxed and ready to go.
My God.
So we wanted to talk about, and I bothered him about this a couple weeks ago when the indictment came out, but I wanted to bother him tonight about the Don Lemon lawsuit. There's like the criminal issue, right? But this is a separate thing where I actually saw it on TMZ, which TMZ is not my favorite source of information, but I did see he was being sued for emotional distress. So I went and I found the actual lawsuit document. Haven't gone over it in full yet, but yeah, it's not very long. The complaint's like 14 pages, but yeah. So you mentioned you saw videos of him at the church.
Well, let's just say that the indictments, the thing that they indicted him for, that he was in there inciting a riot and basically putting his hands on folks in there, did not match up with the video evidence that exists.
I see. Okay.
There were two federal judges before he was ever indicted that denied an arrest warrant to go get him, or a warrant to search his place for additional evidence, because they said, yeah, this is bullshit, and the video doesn't show him doing that. And so instead of doing that, they initiated grand jury, which would basically indict a ham sandwich, like the standard is so low. And they have that. And now it's not a coincidence. The day after he's indicted, they filed this civil lawsuit. Why? Because in civil lawsuits, you don't have Fifth Amendment protections. And so probably step one on the civil case, they're probably going to issue a stay until the indictment is dealt with and over and finished, so that they don't have to infringe upon his Fifth Amendment rights. But yeah, this is all calculated. And it's like, for this administration particularly, they're so bad at litigating. It's not that they're bad at litigating. That's not the right word. It's just they're trying to do it for these egregious purposes. Because there's nothing that Don Lemon did on video. There's nothing that he did in Minnesota at that church that was greater than the people that were pardoned on January 6th, the insurrectionists. Nothing. He didn't go in there with weapons. He wasn't putting his hands on police officers. He wasn't scaling walls. He wasn't breaking into the state capitol. He wasn't doing any of that. Yet many of the folks that participated in that event, who found themselves criminally and federally criminally convicted, have been pardoned by this administration. And now you get Don Lemon. What's unique about this administration is that they 100% differentiate between red and blue, Republican and Democrat. Just listen to the State of the Union address last night.
I didn't get that impression. No.
Oh, not at all, huh? It's like
I'm sorry. I don't usually watch those things live, so I have not actually seen it.
Oh, well, just watch my debate with Brad, and then you'll get.
I saw that you posted that. Unfortunately, I was working at the time, so I haven't seen it yet.
You didn't miss much. It was actually kind of a sad debate.
Well, then I'll keep missing it, I guess. Because
I mean, it was depressing. It was legitimately depressing. I was legitimately.
You really know how to market your stuff, man.
It was depressing. Look, I'll tell you this: that the debates got very real at times. It got a little bit heated at times, and I think my frustration in that debate was palpable in a way that I haven't displayed yet. Certainly not with Brad, but it's just my patience for that level of thinking is just wearing thin, and I have nothing left to offer people with certain opinions. And so I'll leave it at that. And if you want to check that out, you could. It went live. Well, it wasn't live. It was pre-recorded, but we premiered it this afternoon at 5 p.m. PST. So all that to state that there is 100% an agenda because of who Don Lemon is. I don't care what you think about him as a journalist, personally. In the days that I used to watch CNN, which was years ago, and I'm talking
he's not on CNN anymore, but
I know, not this decade. I haven't watched CNN this decade, put it that way. But when I watched it, he was on there, and my opinion of him was, this guy's pretty corny. I didn't have a negative opinion about him. I certainly didn't have a positive opinion of him. He just came off a certain way. He had a certain way about him. I didn't dislike him as a person. I just didn't value him as a journalist. However, he's been very vocal in his displeasure at this administration. And they had an opportunity because of what was going on in Minnesota with the ICE stuff that was happening, the Preddy shooting, the Good shooting, all the vitriol that was being spewed back and forth, that this DOJ decided they needed to fight back. And so they tried to illegally obtain warrants to prosecute Don Lemon. And they tried to do it based on a a blatant lie about the way that they described him acting in the church, basically stating that he was holding people hostage, that is putting his hands on people in the church. And in the videos, he's literally opening the door for folks.
Yeah.
Going in and out. He very explicitly states that I'm here for journalistic purposes. I'm here to cover this. He has a microphone in his hand. He's doing his journalism thing. And because of who he is, and it wasn't just him, by the way, it was like 8 others. Because of who he is, they're trying to blow this up to distract or to give people on the right something to grasp onto and to swing back with, to, I guess, assuage some of the ICE rhetoric that's been thrown about, that people, so that they move on from it faster, I guess. I'll tell you what, the indictment isn't going anywhere. It's a case, this case is never going to jury trial. It's going to get dismissed.
Okay.
The civil case is going to get dismissed. But before it gets dismissed, they're going to stay proceedings because there's no attorney that's going to allow this to proceed while the criminal case is ongoing. So that's my preview of what this is all about. That's, you understand, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. So when it comes to stuff like you're talking about the January 6th indictment and all that, and this church protest and how they're being handled kind of differently, my personal opinion on both of those things, and I think everybody acted a little bit stupid. I think a lot of people act a little bit stupid on kind of both, maybe even both situations. I don't know. I watched some of the footage of the protest. Obviously, I've seen the footage of January 6th, which I feel like, everybody's seen the January 6th thing. Yeah. My curiosity is kind of like why, I guess it's not even curiosity, but my thought process is why Don Lemon. Why are you going after Don Lemon? And it's because he's obviously the highest profile figure involved in the protest. Exactly. It's not, I don't think you would give anybody other than Don Lemon, anything but a slap on the wrist at that point. Tops. But it's also like,
look, journalists have been present at much worse things than this Minnesota church protest.
Oh yeah, sure.
When I covered the ICE thing, there was multiple people that sent me videos of the church protest, and the thing behind it was, we see what Democrats are doing. Is this peaceful protesting? And the answer to that was yes. Listen, in the indictment, I don't remember, and they're literally trying to get Don Lemon for violating the Ku Klux Klan Act. And if you have any working knowledge of American history, the reason why that was put into place is because the Ku Klux Klan would roll up to churches in the deep South, that were full of people that were not white, black, brown, whatever, predominantly back then black, and they would Molotov cocktail the shit out of those churches, burn them to the ground. Remember the case of those 2 little girls that burned up in the church? I mean, that was national headlines. And then the people that were responsible for it, they got I forget the name of the case, but I mean, they made movies about it. It's
when was that?
59, 62, 61, around
that.
I
thought you were talking about something recent. I was like,
no. We're talking about ancient. I'm just saying that it's the Ku Klux Klan Act, because they were actively, when they would go protest at church, it wasn't to open doors and hold up signs and voice their displeasure for the way law enforcement was handling things pre-1964 Civil Rights Act, right? It was literally to burn those churches to the ground and send a message to the minorities in the town that, hey, know your place, get the F out of our town. We'll take your money, but we won't allow you to have your humanity. That was the message. And so as a result of that, they write this act, and they're trying to prosecute Don Lemon based off of that same act, which should be insulting to every person that has ever read anything about the Ku Klux Klan and the way they've operated for 2 centuries now.
Okay.
Mississippi burning.
Oh yeah, I saw that comment. Yeah. I was like, wait a minute, that's okay, that's familiar, but I just lost my brain for a second. Yeah.
It had the Hoosiers guy in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying right now, it's cool.
So
Gene Hackman, but the coach from Hoosiers, Gene Hackman, rest in peace.
Okay, I forgot the guy. I know who that is, and I forgot the guy's name, which I do with almost everybody, except for like a select few actors or singers. Like I'm like, I know what they look like, but I don't know their names. But if you say it to me, I'll like put it together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah. So my kind of thinking without all of that, you obviously have a much more informed opinion by a historical background and all that, and like the law and history of law and all that. But like my thinking when I saw this first happening was, okay, but I'm concerned that they're doing this on, like, I guess the church would be considered a private property. So that was my concern there. I was just kind of like, well, this seems like it could end up in a bad place to where these people might get in some trouble for that. Because I don't know, like it seems like to me that kind of a protest is not like a violent thing. They're not like doing anything insane or like that intense, but like they're still going on to what is like a private place of worship. And I guess, is that like a legal thing you can do as far as protesting goes? Even if it's peaceful, can you still go into a church and do that?
Yeah, it's a peaceful protest. I mean, if it's generally, churches are open to the public, they have a right to kick people out. But there is such a thing as peaceful protest. Look, they're trying to get this under the FACE Act. They're trying to get it under the KKK Act. You're asking a very important question, and we've been having this discussion now for how many months? How many months? How long has it been since the Good shooting, the Preddy shooting? What constitutes peaceful protesters? Yeah, I mean, generally, if you're not inciting violence, like for example, they use the term like you have freedom of speech. You're allowed to do or say what you want, but what you can't do is incite violence. You can't scream from the top of your lungs in a crowded theater that there's a fire and incite a riot. That kind of thing. You can't scale the walls of the state capitol and try to force your way in there, assaulting police officers on the way, taking weapons with you for the purpose of hunting down Mike Pence because he won't overturn the election. That would be an example of unpeaceful protesting. Holding picket signs, standing in the streets, walking in a public street, obstructing traffic in a public street, going to a church in the face of a church, walking inside of the church and holding your pickup signs. Those would be all examples of peaceful protesting. These indictments, the criminal indictments, have never ever been used in the way they're being used right now, where Don Lemon was participating as a journalist in what was supposed to be a peaceful church protest. As far as I'm aware, and look, this lawsuit paints a picture that, hey, this lady was so bothered, or she was suffering intense emotional distress because she couldn't take it, that there were people that would dare, come to her place of worship and try to expand upon the conversation by having a discussion about the law enforcement practices harbored by ICE and how it was affecting American citizens or whatnot, whatever. She could agree or disagree with that, but the bottom line is they had a constitutional right to be there, so long as they weren't inciting violence or committing any crimes, which they were not.
In the indictment, did they even raise like trespassing? Is that something that's even because I didn't actually read the whole I found it, but I haven't read it all.
Well, let's read it. It's not that long.
Yeah, let's pull it up.
Pull it up.
So I'm curious about the trespassing aspect, because like some of the people who were maybe not even Don Lemon, because I'm saying Don Lemon is just the face of this shit, right?
Yeah.
For the people who are trying to make this an issue, but there may have been some people who at least from what I've seen, because I watched some coverage on this from, I don't know if you've ever seen a guy named Brad Palumbo, and I watched a couple other people who are a little more like moderate politically. And his point was that some of them were asked to leave and they didn't. And I was like, but how long, like if somebody asks you to leave and you don't like turn around and walk out right away, like how long, what's the threshold there for like, if somebody says like, we want you to leave, we want to continue our service. And it's in the church. Like what is the threshold for like trespassing at that point? If they don't turn around and like run out of the door immediately, that's not like, I feel like
that's a fair question.
Yeah.
Fair question. Now churches are unique, right? They're generally observed in America to be places of public worship. Like for example, there's a reason why you can't walk into somebody's house and start a protest. That you would be if somebody shot you in the face for entering someone's house. That's different. But churches, they don't pay taxes. They're usually exempt from taxes. They're understood to be public places of worship, such that the people that are running the institution generally don't own them and have the same rights to cast away people that are there to peacefully protest or disrupt. Now, obviously, there's limits to that. But let's read the indictment. Do you have? I actually have it pulled up. I could maybe.
I got it right here.
Oh, perfect.
You're looking at it.
I'll read from page 1. The city's church is a Christian house of worship located in St. Paul. On the morning of Sunday, January 18th, 2026, at approximately 10:30 a.m., the church's pastor was leading the congregation in a liturgical service. In that service, the church's pastor and congregation were then exercising and seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship, a right that is also protected by a federal statute codified by Title 18, United States Code, Section 248. After the service commenced, a group of approximately 20 to 40 agitators, including all of the defendants named in this indictment, entered the church in a coordinated takeover-style attack and engaged in acts of oppression, intimidation, threats, interference, and physical obstruction. Where start getting
threats, though, like where were the threats there? I didn't see any threats. Even if you argue that they were disruptive and they took over the service in a way that's like wrong somehow, where were the threats? Because I listened to the chanting and all that, and it's kind of like there was no threatening behavior. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking that they would probably argue a threatening posture or something to that effect. Okay. You know. Not necessarily a verbal threat or something to that effect. Okay. Give me 1 second. I lost my place. Damn it. I had it.
You read it at the beginning of 4.
Oh, I accidentally closed my browser. All right, here we go. After the service commenced. Oh, here we go. As a result of defendant's conduct, the pastor and congregation were forced to terminate the church's worship service. Congregants fled the church building out of fear for their safety. Other congregants took steps to implement an emergency plan, and young children were left to wonder, as one child put it, if their parents were going to die. Now, here's count 1. Conspiracy against right of religious freedom at place of worship. This is the KKK Act, KKK. The reason this exists was codified in the laws because of the Ku Klux Klan. The allegations set forth above in paragraph 1 through 4 of this indictment are re-alleged and incorporated herein by reference. The object of the conspiracy, beginning on an unknown date and continuing to on or about January 18th, 2026, in the state and district of Minnesota, these named defendants conspired and agreed with one another with one other person known and unknown to the grand jury to injure, oppress, threaten, and intimidate multiple persons, including the clergy, staff, and congregants of the city's church in the free exercise and enjoyment of the rights and privileges secured to them by the laws of the United States, and because of such persons having exercised such right, namely exercise of the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship as secured by Title 18 of U.S. Code 248C, all in violation of Title 18 and stuff. In order to achieve the object of the conspiracy, defendants Armstrong and Allen, together with persons unknown to the grand jury, organized the operation targeting the church, which they dubbed Operation Pull Up, and promoted it on the internet via Instagram accounts. All defendants met at a shopping center for a pre-op briefing, namely the same way that Martin Luther King might have had a meeting of the minds before one of his staged-in protests in circa 1958 in downtown Mississippi or Alabama or Georgia. All defendants were met at a shopping center for a briefing, including defendants Kelly, Lemon, Richardson, Lundy, Cruz, Fort, and Austin about the target of their operation, and provided instruction on how the operation would be conducted once they arrived at the church. Once at the church, all of the defendants entered the church to conduct a takeover-style attack and engaged in various acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. The overt act. So in furtherance of the conspiracy, the object thereof, defendants Armstrong, Allen, Kelly, Lemon, Richardson, Lundy, Cruz, Fort, and Austin, together with other persons known and unknown to the grand jury, committed various overt acts, including but not limited to the following. Overt act number 1. On or about January 17, 2026, defendant Armstrong posted a flyer on 2 Instagram accounts controlled by her at Kimmel in Racial Justice, Minnesota, advertising an anti-ICE action dubbed Operation Pull-Up, telling fellow agitators where to meet to prepare for the operation and exhorting them to be ready to mobilize. ICE refers to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, blah, blah, blah. Overt act number 2. On that date, defendant Allen posted a similar flyer on Instagram. Overt act number 3. On the morning of January 18th, all of the named defendants gathered with approximately 20 to 30 other co-conspirators for a pre-op briefing led by defendants Armstrong and Allen at the parking lot of Cub Foods at 1440 University Avenue West, St. Paul, Minnesota, 55104. Overt Act number 4. At the pre-op briefing, defendants Armstrong and Allen advised other co-conspirators, including defendants Kelly, Lemon, Richardson, Lundy, Cruz, Fort, and Austin, about the target of their operation and provided instruction on how the operation would be conducted once they arrived at the church. And on the morning of January 18th, Lemon began live streaming on his internet-based show, The Don Lemon Show, where he explained to his audience that he was in Minnesota with an organization that was gearing up for a resistance operation against the federal government's immigration policies, and he took steps to maintain operational secrecy by reminding certain co-conspirators to not disclose the target of the operation and stepped away momentarily so his mic would not accidentally divulge certain portions of the planning session.
Are you talking about like the footage from the car? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. So overt act number 6, during a discussion with defendant Armstrong at the pre-op briefing, defendant Lemon thanked defendant Armstrong for what she was doing and assured her that he was not saying what's going on, i.e. he was not disclosing the target of the operation. B, defendant Armstrong explained that Operation Pull-Up was a clandestine operation in which she and other agitators would show up somewhere that is a key location where the targets don't expect us and we disrupt business as usual. That's what we're about to go do right now. And defendant Lemon said he would see her there. Overt act number 7, before heading to the church to join his co-conspirators, defendant Lemon advised his live stream audience that we're going ahead of the operation. Again, we're not going to give any of the information away. Operational details that would disclose where he and his co-conspirators were heading. That's one way to frame it. Overt act number 8, at the pre-op briefing, defendant Allen led other co-conspirators in chants that they would use at the church, including "This is what community looks like" and "ICE out of Minnesota," urged her co-conspirators that they have a duty to fight for our freedom and a duty to win. And as the group prepared to head towards the church, directed her co-conspirators to stay bumper to bumper, make sure everybody gets through the lights, and confirm that everyone had the address. Overt act number 9, at the pre-op briefing, defendant Armstrong provided instruction and operational guidance to her co-conspirators, including the following. The first wave of agitators would enter the church essentially in an undercover capacity and position themselves around the church sanctuary. They should not sit together, should not wear anything that is activist identifying, and those who had anything activism identifying should wait and come in with the second wave. Overt act number 10, continuing on the morning of January 18th, all of the defendants got in their vehicles, traveled with their co-conspirators to the church to engage in the planned takeover style operation. While en route to the church, defendant Richardson told Lemon that they had to catch up to the others, and defendant Lemon replied, "Let's go catch up." And because he was still live streaming, Lemon instructed Richardson and an unidentified male, "Don't give anything away," and advised his audience, "We can't say too much. We don't want to give it up." Overt act number 12, continuing on the morning of January 18th, all of the defendants, together with other co-conspirators, enter the church sanctuary, and with the first wave positioning themselves among the congregants, and the second wave led by defendants Armstrong and Allen, commencing the disruptive takeover operation in which the first wave of agitators then actively joined. Overt act number 13, as the pastor was beginning his sermon, defendant Armstrong interrupted the service with loud declarations about the church harboring a director of ICE and indicating that the time for judgment had come. And other co-conspirators immediately joined in by yelling and blowing whistles in a takeover attack on the church, all of which quickly caused the situation on the church to become chaotic, menacing, and traumatizing to church members. Overt act number 14, while inside the church, defendants Armstrong, Allen, Kelly, Richardson, Lundy, Cruz, and Austin, and others led and or joined with their co-conspirators in various chants, including "ICE out," "Hands up, don't shoot," "Stand up," "Fight back," while gesturing in an aggressive and hostile manner, which congregants and the pastor perceived as threats of violence and a potential prelude to a mass shooting.
Did anyone actually, say anything about potentially thinking a gun was there?
No.
Okay.
No.
So that just kind of, okay.
They're framing it that way, though, because they have to.
I didn't even see, even in the footage that he had from talking to the pastor and the people in the church, I didn't even see anyone say anything about thinking there was a gun or any sort of violence.
I have some of the footage. We could review it.
What's up?
I have some of the footage we could review and see for ourselves.
All right.
Overt Act number 15. While inside the church, defendants Armstrong, Allen, Kelly, Lemon, Richardson, Lundy, Cruz, Fort, and Austin oppressed, threatened, and intimidated the church's congregants and pastors by physically occupying most of the main aisle and rows of chairs near the front of the church, engaging in menacing and threatening behavior. For some, chanting and yelling loudly at the pastor and congregants and or physically obstructing them as they attempted to exit and or move about within the church. Now, if they actually physically obstructed anybody or blocked somebody's path in the aisles, preventing them from leaving the building, that would be a crime.
I think given there was a live feed of it, you could tell that like Don Lemon was not obstructing anybody though. I mean, there would be certain defendants, maybe they did. Yeah. I don't know. You know, I don't know because I don't know everything. I don't know the people by name, the defendants by name of like who they were in the video, but like, I don't think that he was doing that.
I think that you need to understand, and the audience needs to understand that this was brought in front of 2 federal judges before it was ever made.
And they said no to that.
And they said, no, fuck off. We're not doing that.
Okay.
I'll finish with this and then I will, I lost my place once again. Okay. While inside the church, defendants Austin stood with other agitators and around the main aisles. Oh, did I get through this already?
Yeah, we talked about this when we were on 17.
We're on 17. Okay. While inside the church, defendants Lundy personally participated in the disruptive takeover operation with other defendants by standing in the main aisle with the others and contributing to the physical obstruction and intimidation of the congregants, participating loudly in some of the chants. In other words, what actually likely happened was they walked in there, started shouting at the pastor that was in there giving the sermon. And they probably had signs and they were probably being real loud. And yes, it probably disrupted service. But if all they did was stand there in the aisles, not physically obstructing anybody or blocking anybody's path who wanted to leave or exit the building, that is not a crime. Yeah. Worthy of punishment by the Ku Klux Klan Act of whenever they implemented, like 1930 something.
Some people are saying the video clips I saw, it looked like they were blocking people from leaving. Dan wouldn't let the pastor leave his interview. Okay, we'll have to keep that in mind when we watch the clips.
We'll watch the clips. Yeah. While inside the church, defendant Lenny personally participated in the disruptive takeover. Okay. While inside the church, defendants Cruz personally participated in the disruptive takeover operation with other defendants by standing in and around the main aisle with the others and contributing to the physical obstruction and intimidation of Congress. I think I read that. Number 19. While inside the church, defendant Kelly disrupted the service by chanting, "This ain't God's home. This is the house of the devil." Approached one female congregant who was with 2 young children and demanded to know in a hostile manner why she was not involved in and in support of the takeover operation, and screamed Nazi in congregants' faces and asked child congregants, "Do you know your parents are Nazis? They're going to burn in hell." Now, look, I've seen some of these videos. I don't know if it was the ones related to this, but I've seen people behave like that and approach children and like shout in their faces like that in that way. And if you were to ask my opinion, the parents would have every right to square up and punch them dead in the face.
Fair
like if somebody approached me with my children like that, I would take that as a threat. So if that indeed was on video, I haven't seen all of the video. I've just seen the stuff with Don Lemon. I haven't seen anything from all of the other defendants. So maybe there is something in there. If there's people in the audience that says they've seen it, then I'll believe them. I just need to see the video. I'm just saying that if somebody would approach me with my wife and my children and start screaming in my face, calling me a Nazi or why haven't I joined their cause, that would be grounds for physical violence. I feel like I could understand why somebody would be intimidated or take that as a threat. So number 20, defendant Lemon told his live stream audience about congregants leaving the church and about a young man who Lemon could see was frightened, scared, and crying. And Lemon observed that the congregants' reactions were understandable because the experience was traumatic and uncomfortable, which he said was the purpose. As the operation continued, and by the way, that's a very vague reference to he wanted to make people uncomfortable. That's generally the purpose of any protest, is to ask difficult questions and to get in people's heads and to get them think about why they should be uncomfortable about certain situations. So this is a poorly written overt act, in my opinion. Number 21. As the operation continued, defendant Lemon acknowledged the nature of it by expressing surprise that the police hadn't yet arrived at the church and admitted, knowing that the whole point of the operation was to disrupt. And while the takeover operation was underway, Defendant Lemon was asked Defendant Armstrong, who's the person that we should talk to? Is there a pastor or something? And she pointed toward the front of the church, but noted the pastor might have run away. Number 23, while other co-conspirators standing nearby, Defendants Lemon, Richardson, and Ford approached the pastor and largely surrounded him, stood in close proximity to the pastor in an attempt to oppress and intimidate him, and physically obstructed his freedom of movement, while Lemon peppered him with questions to promote the operation's message. 24, while talking with the pastor, did I just read that one?
No, you're good. Finish 23.
Defendant Lemon stood so close to the pastor that Lemon caused the pastor's right hand to graze Lemon, who then admonished the pastor.
Wait, what? I didn't see that part. All right, man.
He got too close to his fist. How dare you? How dare you punch my fist with your face?
I mean, that is a little bit. So if they're saying Don Lemon admonished the pastor, saying, "Please don't push me," because the pastor's hand grazed him when he got in his face, I think that's a little bit ridiculous. But
yeah, look, I've never accidentally grazed anybody in the face. If I touch your face, it's pretty intentional.
Well, no, I think it says the pastor's right hand grazed Lemon, but like it didn't. I don't know if it grazed his face. Did it?
Show me the video. Show me the video.
I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, getting so close to the pastor that he's like touching you and then being like, "Don't touch me." That's a little bit ridiculous.
Keep in mind, they've had 2 cracks at federal judges to try to make something happen, or just to get secure a warrant, and they've been rejected.
Okay.
And so, look, there's such a low bar for evidence when it comes to these grand juries. It's unimpressive that there's been an indictment. 26, I think that's where we're at. No, 25. Although the pastor told Lemon and the others to leave the church, Lemon and the other defendants ignored the pastor's request and did not immediately leave the church, but they did leave. So I guess that answers your trespassing question.
All right.
They went in there, they made a show about it, they were asked to leave, and then they did leave. Maybe not as quickly as they would have liked, but they left.
I mean, that was kind of my question, was like, how much requests or like a instruction to leave did it take before they left, and did they do that in a timely fashion? You know what I mean? So,
and what does that even mean, a timely fashion? So they walked in there, they made their big display, they confronted who they wanted to confront, and then they left.
Okay.
How long did it take? I have no idea how long it took. But yeah, if they sat there for like an hour and like just refused to leave after multiple people and repeatedly being asked over and over and over again to get the hell out of there, and they just held the place up for like an hour.
No, my thing would be like, if he's like sitting there getting so close to the pastor and he's like, "Oh my God, don't hit me with your hand," even because he ran into the guy's hand, you know what I mean? And then the guy's like, "Can you please leave?" And then he sits there and asks him 5 or 10 more questions and then doesn't leave, but then eventually leaves. That, I feel like that would be kind of a problem.
I think somebody said that Don Lemon couldn't hold a bag of jelly beans hostage. Maybe he could. I'm just saying. Hey, you never know, man. You never know. Maybe he's got cauliflower ear, or maybe he's got a background that you don't know about. Don't be sleeping on Don Lemon.
Yeah.
Anyway, where am I at? Number 27. There's one congregant reported responding police officers. Some of the agitators blocked the stairs leading to the church's childcare area and made it difficult and hazardous for parents to retrieve their children. And that can mean a lot of different things. The fact that they were allowed or able to retrieve their children suggests that they didn't block them. Maybe they were standing there. They had to stand somewhere, but they weren't blocking their path, like holding them hostage, preventing them from getting their kids. So that's kind of a silly allegation. Number 28. At one point, Defendant Lemon posted himself at the main door of the church where he confronted some congregants and physically obstructed them as they tried to exit the church building, challenged them with facts about U.S. immigration policy. Hey, First Amendment runs both ways, doesn't it? Number 29, as a minivan full of children was preparing to depart from the church, Defendant Kelly walked in front of the minivan and angrily yelled at the occupants, and defendants Armstrong and Fort stood in front of the minivan while Fort interviewed Armstrong. I see nothing wrong with that. So count 2. They go on, and it's short from here. The second count is 18248A2B as to all defendants. On or about January 18, 2026 in the State and District of Minnesota, these defendants, each aiding and abetting one another and together with other persons known and unknown to the grand jury, by use of force, threat of force, and physical obstruction, intentionally injured, intimidated, and interfered with and attempted to injure, intimidate, and interfere with multiple persons, including the church's congregants, clergy, and staff, who were then lawfully exercising and seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship, which conduct resulted in bodily injury to one of the congregants. Blah. All right, you got to talk now. I need to catch my breath.
Well, I mean, I guess my thoughts on this were kind of my immediate curiosity is, were there any laws broken, which is of course what I want to know here, given the indictment and the now lawsuit for emotional distress. But my thoughts on the protest in general, I watched it, and I think that just for me personally, I understand everyone has different ways of seeing things, but my personal standpoint is like, if I'm going to protest, I'm going to want to do that in a way that's effective for my cause. And I don't know that going to religious, institutions or places of worship and doing this kind of action is, maybe it's not illegal. I just guess from a personal standpoint, I'm like, I don't think that's going to be very effective. I think it's probably going to have the opposite effect. Actually, I think you might kind of like militarize people in the opposite direction with that approach. I feel like if you scare the children and the people in the church, whether or not it was illegal, you're not really going to help your cause that way. I guess people online might see it and there'll be debates about whether or not that was the right thing to do. But I don't know. I just don't see it being an effective form of protest.
The way the DOJ has labeled peaceful protesters domestic terrorists, take what they have to say and how they label or characterize events with a grain of salt. This is their theory. This is what it is. They're alleging that Don Lemon and these defendants, they attended some pre-op briefing before the event. We read that, right? Then they're alleging that Don Lemon is trying to keep the location of the church secret because he's going live and wants to surprise his viewers or doesn't want to let them in on the fact that they're about to do this thing to protest ICE law enforcement practices. They're alleging that he then confronts the congregants at the main door and obstructs their ability to leave. But even in the indictment, they don't go so far as to say that he actually obstructed them. They literally say he made it difficult for them to leave, which I guess if he's standing there inside the church, it would necessarily be more crowded than if they were not there and make it more difficult, but not impossible. So that's, take that with a grain of salt. They say that he attempted to intimidate the pastor. And they say that while in their characterization of facts, admit that the pastor grazed the face of Don Lemon with his hand, presumably, right? Another way to spin that is that he assaulted Don Lemon. But I'm also not a dishonest interlocutor, like Bruce would say, the way that the DOJ appears to be at times. They're claiming that one protester claimed on social media that they helped Lemon with logistics and local contacts. The indictment is talking about somebody suffered a bodily injury. There's allegations that there's video evidence to support these claims. There's a federal prosecutor that said that Lemon knowingly joined a mob, right? So that's what their narrative is. And there's supposed to be video evidence, right? But 2 judges rejected warrants to arrest Don Lemon. Before there was ever this grand jury indictment, the DOJ, they go to 2 separate federal judges to secure an arrest warrant for Don Lemon, both of which made the decision that there is no probable cause to arrest. And I have to assume if there was sufficient evidence in that video that would implicate them in this grand jury indictment, that it would have been a simple, yeah, you got enough here to make an arrest. Here's the warrant, go get them. And so I take this indictment with a huge grain of salt, and I take it with even a bigger grain of salt, knowing the way that the Department of Justice have taken liberties mischaracterizing the facts and mislabeling peaceful protesters because of their own political agenda. And I got lots more to say about that, but I'm not going to do it on this stream.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm not a Pam Bondi fan, right? So,
I know.
I think I don't care like if she was serving a Republican or a Democratic administration. Pam Bondi is just not my cup of tea. in general. And so Pam Bondi, I think I texted you like last week. I was like, if I wanted someone to scare the geese off of my driveway, I would hire Pam Bondi. Like, that's just
Could we
fun.
could I point out one more thing?
Yeah.
It's been stated there are no local there is not any local prosecutors that have signed their name to this indictment. And that's a big deal because it means that there is a Washington agenda attached to this. This has nothing to do with legitimate law enforcement prosecutorial purposes. If it did, then there might have been a local prosecutor signed this indictment to join with the fact that, yeah, a crime has been committed here. Okay. So they're not co-signing on this. This is straight justice from Washington, from the current 2026 version of the Department of Justice, trying to go after Don Lemon for clicks and giggles. Yeah. Is that a thing? Clicks and giggles?
It is now. Yeah. Well, I mean, see, these are the things I don't know, so I have to ask you these questions. So, you said you had clips.
Yeah, there's a post. It used to exist. I'm just gonna pull up what I have.
Yeah, let's do that. I'll let you share if you share your screen, I'll pull it up. But I don't know. I'm trying to separate this in my mind right now. I'm trying to separate the actual like protests from a social standpoint from this like legal document and like the legal process. And I'm just kind of like, my personal feelings are like, I'm not a religious person, but I don't think I would ever expect to be successful in protesting and like persuading people to like care about the issues that I care about if I were disrupting their place of like worship or whatever. I just feel like I'm just kind of like, why would you do that? Was it illegal? Yeah. Not necessarily. I couldn't really tell you that. If you weren't here, I would have no idea. So like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, guess what? That is your right to do that, right? Even look, you could agree or disagree with people that take that position or do those kinds of things. The point is, in America, you're supposed to have the right to do it if you choose, so long as you're peaceful, so long as you're not inciting violence, so long as you're not committing crimes while doing it. Now, obviously, they're making these allegations. I'm just considering the source, and I've never in my life ever uttered the sentence that if it comes from the Department of Justice, it's not to be trusted. I'm just suggesting that this characterization of events, the way that it's been characterized in this indictment, is not to be trusted. I need better evidence than this. I don't for a second buy this version of it. Look, this is the video that I have. This is the one that I found with reference to what they're discussing. Do you have it up on the screen?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to play it.
Has to come there, and then we disrupt business as usual.
So right now it's kind of mayhem. We're not part of the activists, but we're here just reporting on them. Did they explain to you why they're here?
They did not.
They said that there is someone here in Easterwood, who is a member of ICE, and he's a pastor of the church.
Our church had gathered for worship, which we do every Sunday. We asked them to leave, and they obviously have not left.
So this is what the First Amendment is about the freedom to protest.
There's varying array of views in this church on politics of immigration. Recognize the complexity of the issue.
This shows you just how divided America is. When you look at the protesters here, and then you look at the people there who are praying, and you know what was the interesting thing? If these two groups could just get together, they might figure out what to do.
I don't necessarily agree with everything that's going on in the Twin Cities right now, but I don't think it's good to fight fire with fire. I think it's good to speak up. I think it's good to protest, but I think it's better to do it in a peaceful way.
Yeah, that was interesting to watch. This guy here, look, he's hugging his kid. And, you know, I imagine it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here. They think you lost and this didn't accomplish anything, and you went into their house, the house of the Lord.
The reality is the house of the Lord is a place where love lives. It's not a place where you can have a pastor masquerading as the director for the field office of ICE in St. Paul.
I don't know. That looked like a really big church. I didn't see anybody being obstructed.
I think I've seen
speaking with people.
I've definitely seen different footage of that, which was more aggressive.
I couldn't see there. Like, there's another video up here. I think that was the one I was looking for. It's not working. This link isn't working. I'm
Mission
sure there's
Impossible
other
birthday gift for Tom Cruise. Why did you skip that? Sorry.
What do you want? Tom Cruise. What?
I saw a link on there. It says Mission Impossible birthday surprise for Tom Cruise.
Oh, how about that? Just saying. Oh boy. Look, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I saw Don Lemon peacefully conversing with members of that church, and they were expressing to him his displeasure, probably for journalistic purposes. He was getting their side of it, their version of it. He was reporting on it from their perspective. That's what a journalist does. He wasn't like one-sided, like you have to bow down to what we're trying to say and F everything you have to say. He was genuinely trying to get their perspective. And then he says, if we can only just come together, this, it doesn't seem like a guy with bad intentions.
I will say, like, I think that was part of it. I think a lot of it was like that, like what we just watched. However, I think there was a large portion in the beginning of that was a lot more, like I said, aggressive, and people were like running out because they were freaked out. And I did see that.
Running out is kind of a big deal, don't you think? When it comes to that indictment and the way that the law reads.
People, I mean, still, like, I'm just thinking of like the optics of like the protest, not from like a legal standpoint. I'm just thinking of like from a person standpoint. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, it looks a little less aggressive than it was in that footage. I would say it's somewhere in between, like how people have blown it up in the indictment versus like what we just saw.
In that article, the Washington Post, I was trying to pull the video footage from that. There's two separate clips. I couldn't get the other one to play. But the way the Washington Post portrayed it is that it appeared to contradict key claims in the indictment. Lawfare's analysis was even more damning. Video shows congregants moving freely in and out of the church while interacting with Lemon. Lemon stood at the sides of doorways. In multiple instances, he opened doors for congregants. That's the way that the defense is portraying the videos. Now, if there's other videos that contradicts that view, then show it to me if it's out there.
Unfortunately, I don't have them queued up for you right now. I wish I could, and I will have to do that later, just to show you what I'm talking about. But no, I've seen it. Like I said, I watch. There's a couple people I'll watch who are a little more center on their politics who have covered this stuff, and I've seen the footage from them, and I was like, okay, well, this is maybe that's why I'm so concerned as to whether or not it was actually problematic. I was like, was there actual like trespassing here, or was this kind of like, because if you just look at what we just watched, it's kind of like, well, why the fuck are we even bothering with this?
Well, even in that video, there was definitely a scene where there was the church, the members of the church and the protest group that were screaming at each other. You did see that even in the video that we just played, that was probably more favorable to Don Lemon.
Sure.
And so 100%, you even heard one of the church pastors saying that, yeah, we asked them to leave and they won't leave. Obviously, they're still here. And so, sure, there's probably some aspects of maybe they overstepped their welcome. I'm sure of it. Well, but to the level of like they're intimidating and like blocking access to their children, and then I didn't see anything like that. And if it exists, then show it to me.
That per se, it was more so just like I wouldn't say it was. There's a difference between peaceful and well, no, it's not necessarily peaceful, but it's not like illegal, violent, disgusting. You know what I mean? Disgusting, horrible, awful. But like there's somewhere in between that I feel like I was just like I wasn't crazy about the way they went about all that, but it's not like a criminal case. You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. And then somebody asked the same question I asked you in the beginning. So if people weren't here, can you answer that for Susan here, who says, isn't a church a private property? Which is, you kind of explained that to me earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a private property the same way that your house is a private property. They're generally understood to be places.
Do not come to my house to disrupt my day.
If you come to my house to protest anything, I'm going to shoot you in the face. I'm just letting you know. I might not. Well, I don't. Something bad is going to happen if you come in my house and I haven't allowed you to come in. You know, but it's the same thing as like you're working at a Target. You know. Is it private property? Yeah, technically, but it's also a place where the public it's understood that they have the ability to walk in. They're welcome to be there.
I mean, there's free entry.
There's this pretext to it that you're allowed to walk in. Now, can you act poorly and overstay your welcome? Yeah, McDonald's doesn't have to serve every customer that walks in, and if you're causing a ruckus, then they have every right to refuse service and ask you to leave. If you're stealing,
I asked you not to tell people about that.
Well, if you're stealing things or disrupting things, they have a right to ask you to leave. So the act of them walking into the church with for the purposes of protest is not in and of itself a trespass. The question becomes, at what point were they asked to leave? And what was the context with all of that? Because it's a little confusing, and it's more nuanced than you might think. Because on the one hand, there was groups of people screaming at each other. On the other hand, you had people like Don Lemon openly and seemingly cordially having conversations with the people back and forth from both sides, from both perspectives, and commenting on it the same way that a journalist would comment on anything.
Let me okay.
By the way, this is the language of 18 U.S.C. 241, the Conspiracy Against Rights Act, that straight out came from the 1870 Enforcement Act, which was the original KKK Act, Ku Klux Klan. That act criminalizes conspiracies, meaning we got a plan. We're congregating. What? My wife is pointing at me. He's trolling me is what she's doing. It criminalizes the conspiracy to go and disrupt a church service for the purpose of injuring, oppressing, threatening, intimidating any person in the free exercise of constitutional or statutory rights. Penalties include fines up to 10 years of prison, life imprisonment, or death in the event of serious bodily injury occurs, whatever. But when they wrote that act, it was never used. It's never been used to prosecute people that were peacefully protesting at a church. And when they contemplated that act way back in 1870, it was because people were going and meeting up in groups, in masks, riding horses, burning crosses in people's front yards, in public places of business, of worship, or whatever. And the reason why they enacted that was because it was a huge deal, and they needed some kind of legislation that allowed them to prosecute these bad actors. And they're trying to literally prosecute Don Lemon and these other 8 alleged co-conspirators under that very same statute that originated damn near 250 years ago. Or that's not 150. What's 2026 minus 1870? Whatever that is.
Oh,
like 150 years ago.
Math, 156 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The point is, it's a prosecutorial overreach for them to bring this specific allegation against these people for this purpose.
Yeah.
My wife is laughing at me now. She's trolling me. I'm getting trolled in my own house.
Wait, so we said you were reading that in the statute or whatever the language was, and saying like with the purpose of like intimidating or targeting, was that part of it?
Yeah, no, that's the language.
Okay.
I didn't share my screen, but this is the language. Maybe I'll just share it.
Yeah. So with the purpose of targeting or harassing, does it matter that, I mean, they didn't pick just a random church, right? They picked the church where the ICE agent was he a pastor or something? Does that make a difference?
Yeah. No, I mean, look, they didn't go there to lynch him. Like they didn't go there for the purposes of kidnapping and stringing him up by a tree.
Okay.
Strange fruit. That song. They weren't going there for nefarious purposes. They were going there to send a message.
Like what's the bar for intimidation, I guess? With like none of that would be considered intimidation of the ICE agent who worked there, I guess, is my question.
My daughter gets intimidated when the wind blows. Some people get intimidated by, loud noises. Intimidation usually, I mean, you can say that you're my guess is that the way that they would litigate that would be what would be intimidating to a reasonably objective person under the context. And now you got to go deeper into that though. Now put yourself in the shoes of the people there at the church. You're a congregant. What I saw in that video was people yelling at each other, right?
Yeah.
I didn't see anybody being physically accosted. I saw Don Lemon having friendly conversations with church members there that were.
Well, Don Lemon did run into the pastor's hand. So.
Oh yeah, he ran into the pastor's hand. He did do that, right? I just didn't see any overt acts of attempts to injure, oppress, or threaten. And I think that the way that you got to go is like, look, did some people feel threatened? Fine, but was the intent of the protesters to injure and oppress and threaten and intimidate? Because if you could prove that, that would go a long way towards proving criminal intimidation. Like if your purpose is to go there to intimidate by way of threats, some form of oppression that leads to some form of injury. Sure.
Hey, what's
But
up, Nick?
just because you feel intimidated without something more, you know, like, I mean, some people get intimidated by somebody honking at them at a stoplight.
Hey, this guy, Ricada, both you and, God, who else was it? I think it was MG Law. When I would be watching your streams, and I think Nick was actually talking to you on your stream the one night, and I would like wake up because I would fall asleep listening in the middle of the night, and it's like Nick Ricada just talking. I was like, why am I always waking up to Nick Ricada? Like, what's happening here? Like, I didn't do it on purpose, man, but I wake up to Nick Ricada in the middle
I had a dream that you were debating Nick Ricada.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right.
Look, all I'm saying is, and look, somebody already said it. Don Lemon couldn't intimidate a bag of jelly beans, and I would co-sign on that. If Don Lemon were to approach me in an angry manner, I would probably think that he was trying to be friendly. He just doesn't look like the most intimidating guy. And the way that he was talking in the video that we showed, look, maybe there's some other video where he's screaming at somebody in some unfriendly manner. I don't know, man. If it exists, then show it to me. I'm just saying I haven't seen it. That's all.
Man, Nick Ricada totally thinks I'm creepy now. All right, anyways. So let's do this really quickly, since it's almost 1 a.m. my time. But anyways, this emotional distress lawsuit, I'm curious about this. I don't want to read through the whole complaint word for word or anything like that, but as a result of defendants' actions, the worship service was disrupted. Congregants experienced fear and distress, and plaintiff's ability to freely exercise her religion in a private place of worship was unlawfully interfered with. This action seeks to hold defendants accountable for their unlawful coordination, trespass, interference with religious exercises, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, and to obtain damages, injunctive relief, and other remedies as allowed under Minnesota law. So this intentional infliction of emotional distress, that's a pretty hard thing to win, right? I mean,
well, the way that was described to me in law school that always stepped out is like, what is intentional infliction? It has to be behavior that is so egregious that it would shock the conscience of, you know, the fact finder, such that, I don't know, maybe you tied somebody to a tree and covered their body with honey and threatened to release a vial of ants.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time. Absolutely.
I'm just saying that would be an example of, maybe we get somebody on IIED charges there, but somebody that goes to church, you know, and the purpose was to, it seems to me the purpose was they wanted to get a message across that they were pissed off at ICE. It didn't seem to me that the purpose was they wanted to intentionally cause emotional distress to the churchgoers such that it would shock the conscience. Also, I feel like it was more strategic. I don't think anybody expects that filed this lawsuit that they expect to win this. It was filed one day after the indictment. I think that was intentional.
Oh, was it? Wait, this was filed 3 days ago.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I swear to God, I thought it was like a day after the indictment came down. When did the indictment?
I hate to admit this, but I found out about this through TMZ, which is a shame. But you know, I did, and it was from this week. So
the indictment was filed on January 29th. When did the lawsuit come down?
Sorry, what was that? The indictment?
Yeah, was filed on January 29th.
Let me pull that back up real quick. Oh, okay. So the indictment was January 29th. So there's about a month between these almost.
Okay. Well, day month. I think strategically, I think the reason they did that is because there's a pending criminal case, which, you know, might be moot, but the point being, in civil cases, you don't get Fifth Amendment protections. It means that you're forced to testify. So if they have an evidentiary hearing or a trial or something, then they're not allowed to invoke the Fifth Amendment. They have to testify and answer questions that will be used by the Department of Justice to prosecute them when the time comes in the criminal case. And so it probably doesn't matter. But strategically, my guess is they did that on purpose. But what's likely to happen is that the defense attorneys on the civil case are going to ask for a stay until the conclusion of the federal case, so that there's no infringement or potential for infringement on the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights.
Right.
Which is pretty common.
You know, when I was looking for this to go over with you tonight, I came across, there were 3 lawsuits related to Don Lemon that came up in my search. One of them was like this really insane thing about Don Lemon and Taylor Swift and a bunch of other people, and I was like, I almost should just make Omar read this because I had to look at it. And but I'm not going to do that to you.
No, I'm already mad at you because you fact checked me, and now we're not friends anymore. You know what? Brad fact checked me too. He fact checked me. I was talking about the Amnesty Act of 1987. He's like, no, it was 1986. It's like, don't you fact check me, Brad? And then he did fact check. He was like, son of a bitch, it was 86. And now you just fact checked me because I did the one day after things. Like, damn it. Well, I meant well. So,
Arcadis says when the shitty lawyer sued me for IIED, he had his wife write in an affidavit that's outrageous. He also put in his affidavit that his paralegal exclaimed that's outrageous. Homeboy had like 7 people quoted as saying that's outrageous. In reality, no one has ever actually said this in all of history.
That is outrageous, Nick.
All right. So I'm not going to read all the parties, obviously.
I didn't know that it was over sued for IID. I'm actually curious about the outcome of that one.
I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't want to bother him, but I was just like, hey, what are you talking about, man? do you want to point me in the direction of where I can read that?
Yeah, that is outrageous. The last time I heard somebody use that phrase would have been like, I don't know, what was that show on Marbury with Opie Taylor and all?
Mm-mm.
Man, I'm slipping.
Yeah.
Oh, that show where they're like fishing in the opening and it's like they're like whistling and stuff. And like Ron Howard was on the show. I think he was the kid. What was that show? What am I thinking of? It was in black and white, 50s and 60s.
Oh, you lost me.
Mayberry. Damn it. Someone in the audience knows. Somebody has to know.
Yeah.
Andy Griffith. The Andy Griffith Show. That's what it was. Billy, that is outrageous.
I have heard of that.
I'm going to tell your mother. Anyway.
Right.
Lauren has no idea what we're talking about. She's like, this is way above.
Oh, we passed 1 a.m. 2 minutes ago, so I'm absolutely halfway in at this point and halfway out. So let's see. I don't think we really need to read too much because this is all similar to like what was in the indictment about the loud chanting, shouting, aggressive gestures inside the sanctuary, interference with the ability to pray.
But I think, I've kind of shared what I think about the civil case. I haven't read it in its entirety, in full disclosure. Okay. I just think that it's bullshit. If anytime somebody opens a lawsuit with IIED claims, look, IIED for me is a throw-in. I mean, I've used it. I am certainly using it in current cases that I'm involved in, but it's for specific behaviors. When somebody starts off with that, what are the causes of action in the civil lawsuit? Is it only IIED?
So we got civil conspiracy because he's not the only defendant here. So civil conspiracy.
Really difficult to prove, by the way.
What's that?
Really difficult to prove.
The
standard is clear. It's not preponderance of the evidence. You got to prove by clear and convincing evidence that something was afoot.
Okay. So civil conspiracy, aiding and abetting / facilitating. Right. That's going to be Don Lemon because of the videos of him saying, "Oh, we know where we're going. I'm not going to tell you who or whatever." And also the video from the parking lot. I don't know if you saw that, but it's basically the same thing.
Funny because like the headline is IIED, but the actual causes of action are more standard.
Actually, I didn't even see the rest of these causes of action until after I had downloaded this because all I saw was emotional distress in the headlines that I was reading. And I had to like go track this down in Pacer to get it. So.
Well, you know what? I didn't find it on Pacer, and so I didn't read the whole thing. But you know what? We could save that for another show.
Yeah.
You
got IIED.
These articles, they were highlighting IIED like it was a thing. I mean, that's whatever to that. Blake Lively claim.
TMZ. So, but then there's trespass / aiding and abetting trespass. So
they might have something valid there for the trespass. To be honest with you, if they're asking people to leave and they were sitting there shouting back and forth like a half hour, maybe there's something actionable there on a civil level. I just don't know if you're going to get them with the 1870 Ku Klux Klan Act.
Yeah. I did. So that's kind of what I was getting at in the beginning when I asked you about the trespassing is like, I feel like there were some people who were maybe not necessarily acting in
the video with Lemon. I think the point was it shows a couple of things. Number one, they were definitely asked to leave and they stayed there and wore out their welcome for sure. I mean, 100%. I think that's pretty clear, even in the most friendly framing of that video. But were they going there to oppress, intimidate, or whatever to cause injury? No, man. Don Lemon, especially, he was like doing his journalist thing. He's talking to people. They're having what appeared to be a cordial conversation. He might have ran into somebody's fist at some point in time, one of the pastors, but he's definitely getting perspective from both sides. Was it, I think trespass of all the things might be the one thing that you could make a legal argument for.
Well, there's, I don't know how many defendants here, but a bunch. And I feel like some of the defendants, and they also named Doe's 1 through 25. So they're going to probably get some people on trespassing.
Well, yeah, but you know what? That's just placeholders to add additional people. Look, I haven't seen all the evidence. Maybe there's worse video out there. Matter of fact, I'm sure there is.
Yeah, I remember seeing some of it. I don't have it ready for you. So,
well, that. You know what? That is unacceptable.
Sorry. It's late.
It's on you, young lady.
Yeah. All right.
Lord, I think sometimes you think the Lord is giving you lemons. And in fact, he's giving you big, beautiful titties.
Let that be a lesson, huh?
I'm really too tired for either of those things. So, it's been a long day.
Yeah. And you effectively get someone on trespass after they left willingly. If they it just depends. Like, context means everything. Like, if they left after 8 hours of holding your place hostage and throwing, like prospective customers or whatever, or derailing an entire church service to the point where they had to cancel it after they were asked to leave and they stayed there for another hour so that they would. Sure. And then they leave. There's limits to that. But look, context is everything. The facts are everything. And then I think that it's really important to understand the behavior of both sides, because what I saw is that there were people yelling at each other, and there was cordial discourse back and forth, at least between what I saw with Lemon interviewing some of the church folks there, the same way that you would as a journalist trying to get the story and report on the story, as he was trying to do on his live as an independent journalist, not for any affiliated major mainstream media news source. And so, look, if somebody leaves willingly, it's not enough that they left willingly. At what point did they leave? And, fill in the rest of the blanks, and then we'll be able to fully analyze that hypothetical.
Hey, I forgot to point this out to you. You missed this earlier.
What's up, Ricardo Holtz? How many times I read his name? I called him Ricardo Bolt.
Close enough, yeah.
My bad, Ricardo. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all I got in me for tonight, man. It's past 1 a.m. I had to work in the morning, so.
All right. May I be the first to mention that your hair is gay?
It is so gay. It's so bad. It's in that weird phase where I decided to grow it back out, and so it's going to be weird for a while.
Oh, it's that in between. It's like when you cut your hair short and then all of a sudden it starts growing out. It's like the awkward phase. It doesn't even look that bad.
I did a lot to it before I.
I just gave you a comment like I gave my wife. Like, oh, you look so nice in the dark. It's like, in the dark, motherfucker.
Well, not everyone looks nice in the dark. So
you were as beautiful as the Queen of England.
Isn't she old as shit?
Exactly.
Okay. I gotta go. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks.
All right, folks. Love you all. Y'all have a wonderful night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.